and welcome to the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis. This is our weekly show where we bring you all the latest updates from the world's most volatile region. We all love ice cream. It is a perfect treat on such a hot summer day. But what if one cold scoop is adding fire to one of the most raging conflicts in West Asia? Ben and Jerry's have found themselves in the middle of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They have decided to no longer sell ice cream in occupied territories. This move has been slammed by Israel as it warned the company of severe consequences. So for our cover story this week, we take a look at the flavor this ice cream is adding to the conflict.
On the 18th of May, Ben & Jerry's posted this simple question on their Twitter. It read, "Any mint lovers out there?" An endorsement of their new confectionery delicacies. The tweet went viral with hundreds of respondents, just not the kind that the company wanted. This was the time Israel was bombing the Gaza Strip. Rockets were being fired from both sides. Palestinians were being killed, and calls for a free Palestine was growing louder. So, the ice cream company's post was flooded with tweets, slamming the sale of its products in Israel and its occupied territories. Response after response, tweet after tweet, called out Ben & Jerry's hypocrisy. Since then, Ben & Jerry's did not tweet for a month. A company that thrives on its social messages and funny confectionery quips went radio silent on social media. Until this tweet on July 19th, it announced that the company will no longer sell ice cream in occupied Palestinian territories. The Vermont-based company is halting all sales in the West Bank and in other occupied territories in East Jerusalem. The reason? It says that the sales are inconsistent with their values. Ben & Jerry's was founded in 1978. The founders are Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, two Jews who set up the company in Vermont. Since then, it has become one of the biggest ice creams in the world. It has franchises in over 35 countries and a net worth of over $500 million. Most businesses of that scale tread lightly in politics, but not Ben & Jerry's. They thrive on social messaging, taking a stance in each and every issue. Since 1987, Ben & Jerry's has been selling in Israel. A business arrangement born out of their friendship with Israeli businessman Avi Singer. But the issue of contention are in sales in Israeli settlements. This is the West Bank, a chunk of land located on the bank of River Jordan and surrounded by Israel on all sides. While it was occupied by Israel in the 1967 war, Palestinians claim it as part of a future independent state. But out of the 3 million people living out there, many are Jewish Israeli citizens. The Israelis living out here are called settlers. They live in the West Bank, but are citizens of Israel. Over 460,000 Israelis live here in occupied West Bank. There are around 130 recognized settlements. The international community deems them as illegal. But Israel calls it a part of its own territory. Vermont, where Ben & Jerry's was founded, is the heart of pro-Palestinian movements in the United States. A prominent one is the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions Movement. Since 2012, it has been building up pressure on Ben & Jerry's, asking them to stop ice cream sales in occupied territories. So it looks like the brand finally took a stance. It will halt all sales in Israeli settlements, but sales will continue as normal in Israel. The move has infuriated Israel. They are slamming the boycott, warning the brands of severe consequences. From Prime Minister Naftali Bennett to Foreign Minister Yair Lapid, everyone seems to be having a meltdown over the decision.
Ben & Jerry's decision is a disgraceful capitulation to anti-Semitism, to BDS, which is a boycott, divestment and sanctions movement against Israel, to all that is evil in the anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish discourse. We won't be silent. Over 30 states in the United States have passed anti-BDS legislation in recent years. I plan on asking each of them to enforce these laws against Ben & Jerry's, so they won't treat us in such ways.
From allegations of anti-Semitism to warnings of severe consequences, Israel is fuming over the move. Israeli shops are boycotting the ice cream brand, kosher grocery stores are dropping Ben & Jerry's, and citizens are giving up their favorite scoop.
It doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense. If you're anti-Semitic and you hate Israel, this is perfect. Do it over something more important than ice cream.
You are taking away their jobs, just like SodaStream. Ben & Jerry's, you should be ashamed of yourself for your hypocrisy.
Parent company Unilever has distanced itself from the move after Israel warned it of repercussions. It assured Israel of its full commitment, saying that the decision was taken independently by the brand. Even the CEO of its Israeli license slammed the move, saying that he will continue with the sales. Zinger was then informed that his contract will not be renewed when it expires at the end of the year. This is not the first time Ben & Jerry's has picked a side. Records suggest it won't be the last. The brand has been at the forefront of social issues, but this time they waded into the uncharted territory of geopolitics. Their cold scoop is now adding fire to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, one that seems to have no end in sight. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
Lebanon's Saad Hariri has quit after being unable to form a cabinet. This move takes the political process in the country back to square one. Now this comes as the country remains mired in crisis. We report about this crisis from the heart of Lebanon. May God help this country. These were Saad Hariri's famous last words as he stepped down, unable to form a government. 9 months after the politician accepted the challenge. The resignation is the result of a sectarian struggle, Lebanon's leading Sunni Muslim politician against the Maronite Christian head of state, Michel Aoun.
It is clear that we will not be able to agree with the President. During the conversation with the President, I also suggested to him if he needed more time to think about it. He said we won't be able to agree. That is why I excuse myself from the government formation. May God help the country and hopefully we talk long today.
This takes the political process back to square one. President Aoun will now have to call on the parliament, who will pick a new prime minister designate for the country. The new designate will be tasked with assembling another cabinet. This will then have to be approved by both the president and political factions. The Sunni politician blames the president for the impasse. He says Michel Aoun still wanted a blocking minority and his party would not give the cabinet confidence. Hariri also believes he paid a price for engaging with the Hezbollah.
During the past period, be it in naming Mustafa Adib or others, I have paid the price because I talked with Hezbollah. I believe in talking with Hezbollah. I am one of those who paid the price at the time when there was a big Sunni Shiite congestion in the country.
Hariri is the second candidate to fail at forming a government in less than 12 months. With the cabinet distributed according to religious sects, his exit makes the process even more complicated. Hariri's resignation leaves Lebanon rudderless, mired in a deepening economic and political crisis. The Lebanese dollar has plummeted to a record low, and protesters took to the streets once again.
We had big hopes that the president would sign on the government formation of 24 ministers, in which he has 8 names. The country is burning. The dollar has reached 23,000. There is no milk, no medicine, no fuel, no food, no chicken, no meat. The poor can't even afford pasta and yogurt. Where are we heading after that?
The country is descending into chaos. The army says that the situation is worsening. Lebanese have always considered their military as an anchor for stability in the West Asian nation, one of the only institutions rising above its divisions. But even the army is threatened by the crisis. There's pressure to quell the protests. Salaries of soldiers have been wiped out, and overall morale is at an all-time low.
Armies in general carry out military wars, traditional military wars, and unconventional wars. We can define the current situation in Lebanon as unusual, and therefore it is an unconventional war.
Crushed under a mountain of debt, decades of corruption and scandals, the demand for a new government, and a financial meltdown like no other. Lebanon is facing its worst crisis since the civil war, and there seems to be no end in sight. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One. Like always, we will continue to bring you all the latest updates from the heart of the conflict. Don't go anywhere, we have a lot more lined up for today. But first, as usual, let's take a look at what else is making the headlines across West Asia.
Iran announces the opening of a new oil export terminal on the Gulf of Oman, one that allows shipments to avoid the strategic Strait of Hormuz. It will allow Iran to export oil bypassing the Strait of Hormuz, checkpoint patrolled by warships of its arch foe, the United States. A suicide bomber killed at least 35 people and wounded dozens in a crowded market in Iraq's Sadr on the eve of Eid al-Adha. Large bomb attacks were once an almost daily occurrence in the Iraqi capital, that have dwindled since an Islamic State invasion was defeated in 2017. President Joe Biden reaffirms his support for Jordan's King Abdullah, telling him the United States will always be there for Jordan. It was the first Oval Office meeting of the new presidential administration for Abdullah, who faced a challenge to his authority from his half-brother Prince Hamza in April. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was sworn in for a fourth 7-year term in a ceremony at the presidential palace in Damascus. Assad took oath in the presence of more than 600 guests, extending the ruler's grip on power on the war-torn nation. Water shortage protests in drought-plagued southwestern Iran spread to other cities. An Iranian police officer was killed during the unrest, raising the death toll in the protests to at least 2 people. With low rainfall, dams are left with dwindling water supplies to fuel the country. At least 6 people have been killed and several people were missing after heavy rains hit Turkey's northeastern Black Sea coast. 200 people were evacuated from flooded homes as rain shut down access to dozens of villages.
As the 2020 Olympics begin in Tokyo, Palestinian weightlifter Mohammed Hamada is aiming to make history. He aims to rank among the top 10, putting Palestine on the world map of weightlifting. Here's a look at his story.
For weightlifter Mohammed Hamada, it is history in the making. He is the first Palestinian to compete at this sport in the Olympics. A moment of pride for the territory. He secured his place at the Tokyo Games after participating in 6 international qualifying contests. But in Tokyo, Hamada wants to pull off the impossible. The 19-year-old is aiming to rank among the top 10.
I will do the impossible and will exert every effort to be distinctive. This is a big event that any athlete hopes to qualify for. It brings me pride to be the first Palestinian weightlifter who qualifies for the Tokyo Olympics.
The Palestinian left Gaza several weeks ago to ensure he faces no issues traveling to the Games. Entry and exit into Gaza is controlled by Israel and Egypt. And since the recent Israeli-Hamas war, curbs on movement have only increased. Hamada and his brother did not want to take any risk, so they headed to Doha weeks ahead of the Games. At his home in Gaza City, Hamada's parents are more than proud. They display his medals to everyone. The countless gold, silver and bronze medallions.
Muhammad has achieved a dream we had waited for long. Thank God today I am relieved. I am proud of Muhammad and Hussam since now we have reached Tokyo.
Palestine has been participating in the Olympic Games since the establishment of the Palestinian Authority in 1996, but athletes suffered from a lack of well-equipped clubs. Proper training tools are not available, and international participation is low.
Muhammad Hamada carries with him all the hopes and pains of the Palestinian youth, who have aspirations of a bright future if they are given a chance.
So Hamada's participation is an achievement in itself, regardless of whether or not he wins a medal. Palestinian weightlifter is not giving up this easily. He wants a medal and a place for Palestine on the podium. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
The Hajj this year was a historic one, but for the kingdom's women, it was an experience like no other. They traveled alone to undertake pilgrimage, and some of them even stood guards at the Holy Mosque. Let's take a look.
For Bushra Shah, it's like her dream is being fulfilled. The 41-year-old set on the pilgrimage to Mecca. But she did it without any male guardian. A historic new for the kingdom. Saudi Arabia has allowed women to undertake the Hajj without any male relative this time. This is, however, based on the condition that women go together in a group.
So many women who are also going with me, so I'm very proud that we are now independent. We don't need any mahram, and first we have started driving, and then we are now going without a mahram. So the Saudi government is making us very independent now.
The decision is part of the kingdom's many social reforms, spearheaded by de facto leader Mohammed bin Salman. It's a move to shake off the kingdom's austere image, opening up its oil-reliant economy to the world. Since the Crown Prince's rise to power, women have been allowed to drive, travel abroad without a male guardian, and even join the royal army. But this isn't without a crackdown on women activists, especially those who criticize his rule. 40% of this year's pilgrims are women, but travel companies seem to be reluctant to accept this, a sign of how dizzying social changes are meeting some resistance. But this isn't the only change that is shaking up the kingdom. Pictures of Saudi's first female Hajj and Umrah security guards have gone viral across all social media platforms. They were seen wearing the official uniform, carrying out their duties at the Holy Mosque, regulating the presence of worshippers and pilgrims while ensuring that all precautionary measures are followed.
I am Soldier Summer, specialized in psychology. I joined the military and am now in the service of the guest of the merciful. This is a huge accomplishment for us, and it is the biggest pride to be in service of the religion, the country and the guest of the merciful.
Men and women in the kingdom can now apply for positions in the military through their unified admission portal. Women can be recruited as soldiers and sergeants, a reform that has been lauded across the kingdom. Saudi Arabia is the home to Islam's holiest sites. It has long been associated with a rigid strain of Islam known as Wahhabism, leaving the oil-rich kingdom steeped in conservatism. But the role of religion now faces the biggest reset here. Many call it a move in the right direction. Others slam the recent changes as mere tokenism. For ages, gender has been a battleground in Islamic nations. As Saudi Arabia slowly moves towards change, will this mean freedom for the women of the kingdom? Or is this just another mirage in the desert? West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
This is West Asia's second Eid al-Adha under the shadow of the pandemic. From no reasons to celebrate in some countries to thousands praying for better times at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Here's a look at how the region celebrated Eid al-Adha.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Thank God that we managed to beat the coronavirus. Thank God everyone is happy and feeling comfortable. I hope that people will follow social distancing rules and receive their vaccines. This year we are very comfortable.
The latest war made the situation catastrophic. The siege has become tighter. There are no exports. The Israeli occupation is making excuses to prevent things that were used to be allowed into Gaza to destroy us more.
There is no Eid. Eid is for the people who have no destruction, have no martyrs. It is for the people who did not see what we saw.
The prices are crazy, completely crazy. We can't buy coats because they cost between $150 to $200.
طول عمرنا بهالمدينة ريحة الورق العنب انت عارف.
We can't even afford a falafel sandwich. No one has been able to afford food and date pastries. We've forgotten about it all. We forgot about meat. We forgot about chicken. We have even forgotten about hummus and bean soup.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you more stories from the world's most volatile region. Until then, stay home and stay safe. I am Ghadi Francis, and you're watching WION World is One.